A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. So, Daniel sent us this one. He says he takes 4 daily medications, including an asthma inhaler, but he finds he is constantly running out of them at different dates. He feels like he is forever running to the pharmacy for the second time in a week, because he forgets to pick up one specific medication while the others are still in stock. He is asking about reliable ways to track stock levels with reminders, and whether taking multiple medications together is actually the general advice. Basically, he wants to know how to keep up a regimen without feeling like he is in the business of becoming an amateur home pharmacist.
Herman Poppleberry here, and man, I feel for Daniel on this one. It is such a classic logistics problem that we mask as a medical adherence problem. We tell people, just remember to take your pills, but we forget that you can only take the pills you actually have in the building. It's like trying to run a printer without ever checking the toner levels. Eventually, you're just hitting print on a blank page.
It is the invisible labor of being alive, right? I mean, Daniel is basically running a small-scale supply chain for his own body, and the software he is using is probably just a glorified alarm clock. By the way, fun fact for everyone listening, today's episode is actually being powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash. It is writing the script, we're providing the brotherly energy, and Daniel is providing the logistical nightmares.
It is a perfect collaboration. But Corn, you hit on the head immediately. The reason Daniel feels like an amateur pharmacist is that he is currently doing the job of a pharmacy technician for free. When you look at the statistics, the average person on 3 or more medications spends about 2.5 hours every single month just managing the refills, the insurance hurdles, and the pharmacy trips. That is 30 hours a year. That is a part-time job you did not apply for.
And the annoying thing is that the pharmacy is a fixed-cost destination. Whether you are going for 1 inhaler or 4 bottles of pills, the drive is the same, the line is the same. The awkward small talk with a person behind the counter is the same. If you have to go twice in a week because your albuterol ran out on Tuesday, but your blood pressure meds run out on Friday, that is a failure of the system, not a failure of Daniel's memory.
Well, not exactly, because I am not allowed to say that word, but you are spot on. Most medication apps focus entirely on the moment of ingestion. Did you swallow the pill? Yes or no. They do not track the inventory. They assume an infinite supply. It is like having a gas gauge that only tells you if the engine is running, but never tells you how much fuel is left in the tank. If Daniel is taking 4 things, he essentially has 4 independent countdown timers running at all times, and because they likely have different refill cycles, say 30 days versus 90 days versus a 21-day inhaler, they are almost never going to naturally align.
It is like a planetary alignment, but instead of Mars and Venus, it is Lipitor and Ventolin. And if you miss that window, you are back in the car. I want to dig into the inventory tracking gap, because that seems like the lowest hanging fruit. Why are these apps so bad at the math? If I tell an app I have 30 pills and I take 1 a day, it does not take a supercomputer to realize I will be out in 30 days.
You would think so, but the complexity comes from the pharmacy as a supply chain node. An app can tell you that you are out of pills, but it does not know if the pharmacy actually has the refill ready, if the insurance has approved it yet, or if there is a backorder. This is why Daniel needs to move from a reminder mindset to an inventory mindset. There are apps that do this better than others. MediSafe is usually the one people point to because it has a pillbox interface where you actually input your total stock. Every time you check off a dose, it decrements the total.
Like a digital pantry. Does it actually ping you when the pantry is low, or is it just a passive display?
Oh, it pings you. You can set a refill reminder threshold. So, when your bottle hits 5 pills remaining, your phone starts buzzing. It creates a secondary layer of notification that is distinct from the take your medicine alarm. It's the difference between a smoke detector and a hey, your batteries are low chirp. One is an emergency, the other is a task for your to-do list.
Precisely. And you can set a threshold. You can say, hey, when I have 7 days left, scream at me. Because a reminder on the day you run out is just a reminder that you are about to have a very bad Tuesday. You need the lead time. But for Daniel's asthma inhaler, it is even trickier. Inhalers are notoriously hard to track because unless they have a built-in counter, you are just shaking the canister like a caveman trying to guess if there is 1 puff or 10 puffs left.
It's the float test. Have you heard of that? People used to drop their canisters in a bowl of water to see if they'd sink or float to gauge how much was left. It's incredibly inaccurate and actually messes with the valve.
I have seen Daniel do the shake. It is not a scientific method. It is more of a vibe-based medical assessment.
It is dangerous, honestly, but there is actually cool tech for this now. There are things called smart inhaler trackers. Companies like Propeller Health or Haley make those little sensors that clip onto the top of your existing inhaler. They track every puff via Bluetooth, so the app knows exactly how much medication is left in that specific canister, but more importantly, it tracks usage patterns. If Daniel is using his rescue inhaler more often than usual, it can actually flag that his asthma isn't as controlled as he thinks it is. It turns a logistics tool into a diagnostic tool.
That is wild. It is basically a telemetry unit for your lungs. But let's get back to the home pharmacist problem. Daniel mentioned taking multiple meds at the same time. Is the general wisdom just to chuck them all back at once like a handful of trail mix? Or is there a reason they are staggered?
This is where we have to be careful, but generally speaking, if a doctor says take these once daily in the morning, they can usually be taken together. The goal of the medical system is usually adherence. Doctors know that if they give you a schedule that looks like a complex Tetris board, you will just stop doing it. So they try to bundle things. However, there are the big 3 interaction traps Daniel should know about.
Hit me with the traps. I love a good pharmacological trap.
Trap number 1 is the absorption blocker. If you take anything like a calcium supplement or even just a heavy antacid, those can bind to other drugs in your stomach and stop them from ever entering your bloodstream. Thyroid meds are famous for this. You take them with a glass of milk or Tums, and you might as well have not taken them at all. Trap number 2 is the grapefruit effect. It sounds like an indie band, but it is actually a serious interaction where grapefruit juice blocks an enzyme that breaks down certain statins and blood pressure meds. It makes the dose in your blood way higher than intended. And trap number 3 is the NSAID overlap. If Daniel is taking ibuprofen for a headache and then takes another prescription anti-inflammatory, he is doubling up on the risk of internal bleeding or kidney issues.
So the trail mix approach has some fine print. What about the empty stomach rule? Why do some pills need a feast and others need a fast?
It's all about the pH levels and the fat content. Some medications are fat soluble, meaning they need a bit of dietary fat to actually hitch a ride into your system. Others are so delicate that stomach acid will destroy them before they get to the small intestine, so they need to be taken on an empty stomach to zip through the stomach as fast as possible. If Daniel is taking 4 things, he really needs to check if any of them are loners that need that empty stomach window.
It has a lot of fine print. The best thing Daniel can do, and this is a pro tip for anyone on more than 3 meds, is to ask for a medication therapy management review. It is a 15-minute sit-down with the pharmacist where they look at the whole list and say, okay, take these 2 together, but move this one to the evening, and don't take this one with your morning coffee. It offloads the expertise from Daniel back to the professional.
And pharmacists love doing this. They are overeducated and underutilized as clinical consultants. They spend most of their day fighting with insurance companies, so when someone actually asks for pharmacological advice, they light up.
I like that. But even if he optimizes the timing of the swallowing, he still has the problem of the pharmacy trips. You mentioned something called medication synchronization. That sounds like exactly what Daniel's looking for. How does that actually work in practice? Do they just give you extra pills to make the dates line up?
That is exactly what they do. It is called a short fill or a transition fill. You pick an anchor date. Let's say the 15th of every month is Daniel's day. The pharmacist looks at his 4 meds. One has 10 days left, one has 20, One is just starting. They will give him a tiny 10-day supply of the first one and a 20-day supply of the second one just to get everything hitting the finish line on the 15th. From then on, he makes one trip, picks up one bag with 4 bottles, and he is done for 30 days. Most big chains like CVS or Walgreens do this, but the independent pharmacies are actually much better at it because they have more skin in the game for patient loyalty.
It is basically a subscription box for your survival. Why is this not the default? It seems like it would save the pharmacy time too.
You would think, but the insurance companies are the ones who make it difficult. They have very strict rules about when a refill can be triggered. Usually, you have to be at 75 or 80% completion of the current bottle before they will pay for the next one. Coordinating 4 different insurance approvals to hit on the same day is like trying to land 4 planes on a single runway at the exact same time during a thunderstorm. But a good pharmacist knows how to navigate those overrides.
So Daniel needs to stop being the pilot and start being the passenger. But what about the physical act of sorting? He mentioned feeling like a pharmacist. There is that whole industry of those little plastic Monday through Sunday boxes, which I find depressing to look at. They look like something you find in a hospital waiting room.
They are aesthetically offensive, I agree. They scream, "I am a patient," rather than "I am a person." But there is a high-tech version of that too. Have you heard of PillPack? Amazon bought them a few years ago. Instead of 4 orange bottles, they send you a long roll of individual cellophane packets. Each packet is printed with the date and time. It says Monday, April 7th, 8 a.m. And inside are the 4 pills you need at that exact moment. You just tear off the packet, take the pills, and you are done. No bottles, no sorting, no amateur pharmacy work. They handle all the doctor calls and the refill syncing behind the scenes.
That sounds like a game changer for someone like Daniel, who is technically literate but time poor. It turns the medication from a logistics problem into a routine problem. It is like the difference between cooking a 5-course meal from scratch and having a pre-portioned meal kit show up at your door. Does it work for the inhaler too, or is that still a separate side quest?
The inhaler stays separate because it's a device, not a pill, but PillPack, and similar services like Hero Health or Alto Pharmacy will still coordinate the delivery. So, while it doesn't come in a little tear-off packet, it arrives in the same cardboard box at the same time. You're still down to 1 delivery a month.
That is a great way to put it. It changes the psychology of the patient. When you see 4 or 5 bottles on your counter, it is a constant visual reminder of illness. It is clutter. When it is just a sleek dispenser with a date on it, it feels more like a wellness routine, like taking your vitamins or brushing your teeth. It reduces the cognitive load of having to remember which pill is which.
There's a term for this in psychology called decision fatigue. Every time Daniel has to look at a bottle and calculate, do I have enough for the weekend? He is burning a little bit of mental glucose. By the end of the day, that's why he's forgetting things. He's just tired of managing the data.
I want to talk about the second-order effects of this, because when Daniel runs out of his asthma inhaler, it is not just about the inhaler. If he can't breathe well, he probably skips the gym. If he skips the gym, his sleep is worse. If his sleep is worse, he might forget his other meds the next morning because he is groggy. It is a cascading failure.
That is a huge point. Non-adherence isn't just a binary yes or no. It is a ripple effect. In the United States alone, medication non-adherence costs the healthcare system about $300 billion every year. And about 25% of that is simply because people ran out of their medication and didn't get to the pharmacy in time. It is not that they didn't want to take it, it is that the friction of the supply chain was too high. For Daniel, it is about reducing that friction to near zero.
So let's look at the technical mechanism of how he could build a better system if he doesn't want to switch to something like PillPack, if he wants to stick with his local pharmacy but stop the madness. You mentioned the inventory tracking spreadsheet idea. How would you actually set that up to be useful and not just another chore?
I would keep it dead simple. 3 columns: name of the med, current count, and daily dose. Then you add a calculated column for days until empty. The trick is the buffer. You don't set your reminder for the day you hit 0. You set it for the day you hit 7. But here is the secret sauce. You find the medication with the shortest fuse. If your inhaler has 5 days left and your pills have 20, your pharmacy trip happens in 5 days. And then, while you are at the counter, you ask the pharmacist to pull forward the refills for the other 3, even if they aren't technically due for another 2 weeks.
Can they do that? I thought insurance companies had those refilled too soon. Hard blocks that make the register beep like a bomb is going off.
They do, but there's a workaround called a vacation override or a clinical override. If the pharmacist is willing to call the insurance company, they can often get permission to push a refill through early for the sake of synchronization. It's a bit of a Karen move, but for a good cause. You're essentially asking the insurance company to be reasonable, which I know is a tall order, but it works more often than you'd think.
It is like when you go to the grocery store for milk, but you check the fridge first to see if you need eggs and bread. It sounds so obvious when we say it, but when you are busy and stressed, you just want to get in and out of that pharmacy as fast as possible.
And the pharmacies are designed for that. They want you in and out. But Daniel's asthma is a specific variable here that we shouldn't overlook. We talked about those smart sensors, but there is also the data side. If he uses an app like MediSafe or even just a simple automation tool like IFTTTT, he can set up a trigger. If my pill count hits 5, send a text to my wife Hannah so she can nag me about it, or send an email to the pharmacy.
I bet Hannah would love to be the automated nag in this scenario. It saves her the trouble of wondering if he is actually taking care of himself. But let's talk about the cost of this. Are these apps and services expensive? I mean, sensors and Bluetooth inhaler clips sound like they'd cost a fortune.
Surprisingly, many insurance plans actually cover the sensors for free because they know that an uncontrolled asthmatic is much more expensive than a $50 Bluetooth clip. One ER visit for an asthma attack costs the insurance company more than 10 years of smart sensors. As for the apps, Metasoft has a very robust free version. The premium stuff is usually just for aesthetic themes or extra family sharing features.
What about the broader implications of this? We are moving into an era where more and more people are on these complex regimens. I was reading that with the rise of these new GLP-1 drugs for weight loss and diabetes, which often require cold storage and very specific titration schedules, where the dose changes every few weeks, the inventory problem is about to explode.
Oh, it is already happening. Those drugs are the ultimate logistical nightmare. You have to keep them at a certain temperature, you have to change the needle heads, and you have to remember that this week you take 0.5 milligrams, but next week you take 1 milligram. If you are using a standard orange bottle mindset for that, you are going to fail. We are seeing a shift where medication management is becoming a branch of data science. Your phone is essentially becoming a co-pilot for your biology.
It is like we are all becoming cyborgs, but instead of cool robot arms, we just have very sophisticated pill schedules. I think Daniel's frustration really stems from the fact that he is a tech guy. He works in automation. He sees a system that should be automated, but instead, he is being forced to do manual data entry at the pharmacy counter.
That is the friction. It is the mismatch between his digital life and the analog reality of the medical system, but the tools are there. If he spends 1 hour setting up a MedSync program with his pharmacist and clips a sensor to his inhaler, he could probably reduce his pharmacy trips from 40 a year to 12. That is 28 hours of his life back. That is a whole weekend he isn't spending standing in line behind someone arguing about a coupon for cough syrup.
That is the dream. So, if we are looking at practical takeaways for Daniel and anyone else in this boat, where do we start? Because it can feel overwhelming to fix the system when you are already out of breath from the asthma and the stress.
Step 1 is the inventory audit. Don't wait for the next refill. Sit down today, count every pill, and look at every inhaler. Put it in a single list. Step 2 is the anchor date. Pick a day of the month that works for you. The 5th, the 15th, whatever. Step 3 is the phone call. Call the pharmacist and use the magic words. I want to enroll in a medication synchronization program. They will know exactly what that means.
And what about the taking them together part? Just to reiterate for him, is there a specific gold standard for pill taking? Like always with water, never with juice?
Water is the universal solvent for a reason. Juice, especially citrus, can change the acidity of your stomach too fast, and never ever dry swallow. Some pills are caustic. If they get stuck halfway down your esophagus because you didn't drink enough water, they can actually cause an ulcer right there in your throat. Always follow a pill with at least 4 to 8 ounces of water.
I like the idea of a critical date too. Instead of 4 reminders, you have one. Your critical date is your earliest refill minus 3 days. That is the only day you care about. If you haven't dealt with the pharmacy by the critical date, you are in the red zone. It simplifies the mental dashboard.
It turns a multivariable problem into a single variable problem, that is, engineering one-on-one. And for the inhaler, seriously, look into those sensors. The data from Propeller Health is fascinating. They found that when people start tracking their inhaler use, their adherence goes up by something like 60% just because the feedback loop is closed. You can see the progress, you can see the trends.
It makes it a game. And Daniel likes games. He likes data. If he can see a graph of his lung function improving because he hasn't missed a dose in 3 weeks, that is a way better motivator than a buzzing phone. How does the sensor know the difference between a test puff and a real dose?
Most of them have an accelerometer and a pressure sensor. They can tell by the duration of the press and the angle of the canister. It's pretty sophisticated stuff. It can even tell if you're inhaling at the right time relative to the puff. If you're mistiming it, the app will actually give you a little coaching tip. Hey, try to breathe in a half-second earlier next time.
It really is. And it helps the doctor too. When Daniel goes in for his checkup and the doctor asks, "How has the asthma been?" Usually we say, fine, I think. But Daniel can open an app and say, "Well, I used my rescue inhaler 14 times in the last 30 days, mostly on Tuesday nights." That is real data. That leads to better medicine.
It moves the conversation from anecdotal to evidence-based. Maybe those Tuesday night spikes are because he's visiting a friend with a cat, or because that's the day he does high-intensity cardio. It allows for lifestyle adjustments that you never catch otherwise.
We are moving from "how do you feel" to "here is what happened." It is a much more precise way to live. But I wonder why the healthcare industry has been so slow to adopt this supply chain mindset. We have perfected just-in-time manufacturing for cars and iPhones, but for life-saving medication, we are still relying on a guy named Daniel to remember to look in a plastic bottle.
It is a legacy system problem. The pharmacy, the doctor, and the insurance company are 3 different entities that often don't speak the same language. They are like 3 different operating systems trying to run the same program. The patient ends up being the bridge between them. You are the human API, and as we know, being an API is an exhausting job.
I don't want to be an API. I want to be the user. I think that is the shift we are seeing with things like PillPack and Amazon Pharmacy. They are trying to wrap those 3 legacy systems into one user interface. It is the Apple-ification of the pharmacy. Whether you like Amazon or not, they understand logistics better than almost anyone on the planet.
They do, and they are applying that to the bottle. But even if you don't go the big tech route, just knowing that these synchronization programs exist is half the battle. Most people don't even know they can ask for it. They think the dates they are given are handed down on stone tablets from the insurance gods.
They are not. They are just defaults. And defaults are meant to be hacked. Especially for someone like Daniel. He should be applying his prompt engineering skills to his pharmacist. Command: synchronize all scripts to the 15th of the month and provide a unified pickup window.
I mean, precisely. He should treat the pharmacy interaction like a technical specification. Be clear, be firm, and ask for the specific service by name. It changes the dynamic from a supplicant asking for a refill to a manager overseeing a service.
I think we have given him a lot to chew on here. It is about moving from a reactive state to a proactive state. The pharmacy shouldn't be a surprise. It should be a scheduled event, like a haircut or an oil change. You know it is coming, you have prepared for it, and you do it all at once.
And don't forget the buffer stock. If you can ever get a 90-day supply instead of a 30-day supply, always take the 90. It reduces your fail rate by 2/3 immediately. Some insurances hate it, but many are moving toward it because it is actually cheaper for them in the long run. Fewer administrative touches, fewer shipping costs.
90-day supplies are the dream. That is only 4 trips a year. You could almost forget you are on medication at that point.
That is the ultimate goal. The best medication management system is the one you don't have to think about. It should be like the electricity in your house. It just works, and you only notice it when the bill comes or the power goes out. Daniel is currently staring at the wiring and trying to solder the connections himself. He needs to hire a contractor, or in this case, a better system.
Well, I hope this helps Daniel get out of the amateur pharmacy business. I would much rather he spend that time playing with Ezra or working on his open source projects than standing in line at a drugstore.
Hear, hear. It is about reclaiming your time and your mental bandwidth. Polypharmacy is a burden, but it doesn't have to be a full-time job.
All right, I think we have covered the bases. We have gone from inventory spreadsheets to smart inhalers to the grapefruit effect. I feel more informed, and I don't even take full medications.
It is good knowledge to have. You never know when you might end up in the supply chain business yourself.
True. Well, that is our deep dive into the logistics of staying alive. Thanks as always to our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, for keeping the wheels on this bus.
And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power the generation of this show. We couldn't do it without that serverless horsepower.
This has been my Weird Prompts. If you are enjoying these deep dives into the weird corners of Daniel's brain and our research, a quick review on your podcast app of choice really helps us out. It tells the algorithms that we are worth a listen.
It really does. We will be back next time with whatever strange topic Daniel throws our way.
Until then, check your bill counts. See ya.
Goodbye.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, my weird prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts.